Happy Revenge of the 5th, everyone. Today, we are going to be reviewing set number 10188, the Death Star. This set came out in 2008 and originally sold for $399.99. We're going to start by getting the droids out of the way. First off, we have the mouse droid here, and this is just a very simple build. It's actually appeared officially in 3 sets, and if you've played LEGO Star Wars the original trilogy, then you'll know that these things were all over the Death Star levels. For a set that has 3,803 pieces, I think it's a fantastic idea for them to use 9 of them to build this simple little mouse droid. And it works really well in the areas that are kind of tightly packed, like the hangar or the storage area, because you can't really fit a figure in there comfortably, but you can fit this little droid there. Next up, we have an interrogation droid labeled as ITO on Wikipedia. It's a really simple build. I like how they used it though. The only change I would make would be instead of the light gray pole, I would use a clear one to make it look like it's hovering. Though I'm not sure why they chose to do the light gray at the time. It may have just been a part issue. Maybe they weren't producing it yet. And obviously this only appeared in the interrogation room with Princess Leia, so there's nowhere else to put it except the interrogation room. Like I said with the mouse droid, I do think it's important because for a droid that only takes about 8 pieces, it would kind of be off if they didn't have this in the interrogation area. Next up, we have an assassin droid, and this is pretty close to a minifigure. These have only appeared in a handful of sets, but they are very cool. The color of this figure is different than most of them. Most of them are gray, shiny, metallic, or black. But what's also unique is that there are no prints on this figure. A lot of the newer assassin droids have a print on the top cylinder piece to make it look like it's got an eye or something like that. But these are just using studs like a red one to make it look like there's a light there. And next we have the Dianoga trash compactor monster. This one's really cool because it uses the little vine pieces as legs and a tail, and it has the little eye there. I know that the new trash compactor set is out, but I don't think it has one of these in it, which makes it a pretty unique thing to see. It's not a complex or necessarily difficult build to get if you want to build one yourself. Similar to the interrogation droid, the Dianoga is so central to the trash compactor scene that it just would have been unfortunate not to have it included. Moving a little closer to actual figures, next we have R2-Q5. This is like the Imperial variant of R2-D2. The print design is very similar to what's on R2-D2. The main difference here is obviously the color piece that it's printed on. There's nothing else really unique about this figure. It moves just the same as any of the other astromech droids from this time. To me, this figure and the one following are going to be kind of figures that I felt like could have been left out. They felt kind of like filler. We didn't need them. We had R2-D2 and C-3PO, and these just kind of felt like they were made to be opposites of them. The next figure obviously being RA7. You can see it's the same idea here. It looks just like C-3PO. In fact, it's the same print. It's just on a different colored piece. Now, what's unique about this is it does use a C-3PO head. Obviously, it's not gold, but if you're a Star Wars fan, you know that RA7, or you can look it up, is actually supposed to have a bug-like looking head, and they did fix this later on in the years preceding. There have been 2 sets with a more accurate RA7 head. Like I said, this character just seems kind of thrown in, especially since it's inaccurate, and I would have much rather preferred an Imperial officer, but it is unique and I'm glad to have it. Next up, we look at the quote-unquote rebel versions of these droids. You have R2-D2, of course, is first, and this uses the gray head instead of the chrome that we now see on most R2 figures. There's nothing special to say. The prints are very nice on the head and on the torso. The legs don't have any printing, but the figure overall is very similar to what we see today. Obviously, next up we have C-3PO, and for a figure that's this simple, it's actually not that bad at all. You know, not every figure has to have prints on the feet, the legs, the arms, the torso, and the head. Obviously, the character in the series has pistons in his arm and little knobs and buttons coming off everywhere else, but I don't think you need all that printing in detail on a figure like C-3PO. I think the printing on the torso and the back is sufficient because it shows the main features of him. Obviously, you can tell me who this is without even needing any context. The figure isn't obviously unique to this set, but I think he's a fantastic addition to the set. Next up, we're moving on to the Stormtroopers, and there were 2 of these basic Stormtroopers included in the set. You can see there's a front and back torso printing, which look just like the ones from the series, and the helmet is very simple, though I think this is arguably my favorite LEGO Stormtrooper. When you look back on the original Stormtrooper outfits, they are fairly simple designs, and I think that they managed to transfer this well into this figure. Underneath the helmet, obviously, you have just the black head. They didn't put any face underneath it like they do nowadays, and I would argue that you don't need a face underneath it. In the more recent sets, they put a variety of different faces on the stormtroopers under the helmets, but they never give you any hair to replace it with if you decide not to put the helmet on. And to be honest, stormtroopers never really have their helmets off. And I will say that one of the best things about this is that they included 2 stormtroopers in the set, so you can put them around the Death Star to create active scenes. In addition to the standard stormtrooper, the set also included 2 Death Star officers. This set was actually the first appearance of any Death Star officer, and fortunately it came with 2 because you have all these different areas you can put them, like controlling the panels near the Death Star laser, having them man the Death Star cannon, or having them operate the doors to the hangar. There are all these different places you can put them, but they're great figures. They don't have the newer, cooler helmets that the Death Star officers have, and obviously they're reusing the head from the Rebel troopers in the sets that were coming out this time as well. But they're fantastic figures. You don't often get a chance to put some Death Star officers in a set. The only downside of this figure, I would say, is the lack of printing because it's just a standard black jumpsuit. Continuing our look at the Imperial troopers here, we have the Royal Guard, and this set also came with 2 Royal Guards, and obviously you're going to want to put them in the Emperor's throne room protecting the Emperor. The prints on this figure are alright. The figure's supposed to be wearing a robe, so obviously it's going to be all red, and the torso is the only thing printed, the front of it, and it's just some lines to make it look like there are creases in the robe. Whether old or new, the figures typically look like this. There isn't an excess of printing on anything because there doesn't need to be. What is interesting is that for the force pikes, they're using the spears here in this case, and some of the later throne room sets, they have different builds and stuff for the force pikes. But overall, I'd say these are a few of the cooler figures in the set. Next up, we're looking at Grand Moff Tarkin. Now, this figure obviously is very simple, and the legs and the hair have been in tons of other figures, but the torso, the front printed torso on this figure, and the face are unique to Grand Moff Tarkin. This figure only appeared in this version in the Death Star from 2008 and in the Imperial Star Destroyer as well. I think that the officer uniforms in Lego form are really cool, and there have only ever been 3 Grand Moff Tarkin figures. One was an updated version of this one, and the other being a Star Wars Rebels version. I'd be especially interested in seeing if they will redo this in the near future sometime, because it would be really nice to have an updated Grand Moff Tarkin figure from the original trilogy. Now moving on to our Sith Lords. First we have Darth Vader, and this is the Darth Vader with his special Death Star torso. Obviously the legs and the helmet and the cape have appeared in other forms, but the torso and the head under this figure have appeared in about 5 different things. One was a magnet set, one was a watch set, there's the UCS Death Star, obviously Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and then finally the 2009 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive set of 5. The Darth Vader minifigure has had several head changes and helmet changes over the years, but I actually prefer these 2, especially because it makes more sense to take his helmet off so you can recreate that little scene at the end of the movie where he's laying down on the ground seeing Luke's face. I think it really works for this set because you can either have him fighting with his helmet on or having that scene recreated. If you are a standard collector though, you're probably not going to be too concerned about the differences in the torso printing though. Now for the man himself, Emperor Palpatine. This specific figure has only ever appeared in 2 sets, the 2008 Death Star here and the 2010 Emperor's Shuttle. The head has only appeared on those figures. Obviously the pants and the hood have appeared on others as well as the cape. But that torso is interesting because the torso also appeared on a Darth Maul figure, which came in 2 watch sets. As you can see from the front here, it's just a front printed torso, very simple robe printing, but it's interesting that they chose to reuse it on Darth Maul, a figure that only appeared at that time in a watch set. This character is one of the best in the set because although his torso isn't very well printed, his head is actually the most detailed, I think, of any of the figures in this set. And starting off our light side characters, we have Stormtrooper Luke here. Now the head and hair are the same exact as the Farm Boy Luke that also comes with the set, and the Stormtrooper body here, the torso and the legs, are just the same as the standard Stormtrooper. The set did also include an extra helmet so that you could put the helmet on top of him if you wanted him in his disguise. That's really all there is to say about this figure. Now for the standard Luke Skywalker figure, we have the same hair and head like I said, but we have a new torso. This is him in his farm clothes, and I actually really think this is one of the best prints in the set. For a 2008 set, you have a print that goes from the torso to the legs and is even on the hips. There's obviously no boot printing and there's no printing on the sides or the backs, but it doesn't need it because these are fantastic either way. And this figure was used until 2012 in a whole bunch of different sets, about 5 of them. And the newer figures of this character aren't all that different. And now the same situation as the Stormtrooper Luke figure, the Stormtrooper Han is just a Han Solo hair and head from the same set put on top of the Stormtrooper body. And also like the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper figure, the Han Solo came with a helmet that you can put on him as well, and you can't tell the difference between him and the regular Stormtroopers except for the head underneath. Now looking at the standard Han Solo figure for this set, you can see it's the same hair and head as the Stormtrooper one, but the torso and legs are very different. He's got his standard vest on the torso. It's a very simple print. You can see the black vest and the tan undershirt. There's nothing else, no other printings. But on his hips, you can see there's a holster for his blaster. The detail on the holster is actually really cool, but he didn't really come with a special blaster in this set. I would have preferred if they had given him one of the smaller ones that they put in the office room that I'll show you later. Obviously, since this figure, we've had a lot of changes on Han Solo with more printing on the torso and legs, different head styles and more detailed head styles. But all that being said, I think this is still a fantastic Han Solo minifigure. Next up, we've got Chewbacca here, and you can see right off the bat, he's got a shiny mold that's really reflective, so it's kind of hard to see it a little bit, but he's got silver printing around the front and back along his bandolier to look like the little cartridges for the bowcaster he's holding. In this case, they gave him a silver crossbow. There is just a plain brown torso and legs underneath this mold. Obviously, there's no need to have a print on the torso. Maybe in the arms, you could put some fur. The legs, there could have been some fur. But that's fine because really the detail is going to be on this character. He's got the silver, like I said, on the bandolier, and then a black dot where his nose is. And this Chewbacca was used in quite a few sets, actually until about 2013, when they began to start changing and redesigning the figures to make them look a little bit more detailed, put a little bit more effort into the character design. But I still think this is great. It lasted for a long time because it's very simple and instantly recognized. Next up, we have Princess Leia. And this figure is a little bit disappointing because you can see there's no printing on the legs and the torso is very plain. There's no printing on the back or the sleeves. It's very plain for her robes. The head looks very decent. It's showing no expression though. And obviously you have the classic Leia hairdo, which is fantastic. She's actually the reason we bought this set in the first place because you can see on the back there's glue. The person who bought this set originally only got it for Leia to put her on a wedding cake. So they glued her on there and then sold it to kind of like a pawn shop, toy shop kind of thing. As far as they knew, they didn't know the condition of the set, how many pieces were there. They figured Leia was missing, and when we actually opened it up and built it, we found Leia right there. Only downside was that she had a little bit of glue on her, which is fine. We can try and remove it. We haven't gone too much into trying to get rid of it, but we'll do that in the near future. Next we have Old Ben, and he has the same lifeless stare that all the other figures from this set do, but he has a really cool torso. The robes are just standard Jedi robes, and I really prefer when they do this, when they give you the hood and the cape rather than just giving you a hairpiece and doing a robe print. There are definitely plenty of newer versions of this figure that have better prints on the torso and better heads, but this is a classic and the head is very unique. Now finally, the last figure we're going to look at is Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. You can see first off that his hair has been updated to match his appearance in episode 6, and you may notice that his face is the same as the 2 other Luke Skywalkers that came in this set. You'll notice that the legs don't have any prints, and the torso has one hand that has black for the glove where his robotic hand is, and the other one is tan to match his skin. The torso is printed only on the front and just enough so that you can tell that he's supposed to be wearing a robe. It's very similar to Emperor Palpatine's from the same set, but it is subtly different and less detailed than that one as well. I would like to see a newer version of this figure sometime in the near future. This is obviously a very large set to film and look at, so we're going to do this room by room, but it is important to note that there are about 14 different rooms in this set. The bottom is technically one room. It's not really designated as something specific you see in the movie or something you can tell what it is, but the others are pretty well themed. You can tell what they are by looking at them, and they were really fun to build. They each had something unique about them. Our first room is the shield generator room where Ben is trying to take out the reactors so that they can escape. You can pull this little switch here and drop it to make it look like the shield is off. There isn't a whole lot of room for Ben to stand on the platform. Behind this, they've utilized the space for a door that you can slide open and close that actually goes to the trash compactor room. The elevator that I'll show you later actually connects to this, and you can have them ride up and down from there. But you can see inside the trash compactor there's a whole bunch of different pieces to look like trash, and you can push this little piece in and out up top to make the walls come in, and they can come in all the way if you want. You can put the Dianoga inside and put whoever else you want in there as well. It's worth mentioning, like I said, that the bottom isn't necessarily a room. The elevator does connect to it, but they're just random pieces to look like supplies and trash on the bottom, because obviously it's not very tall and it's not going to be something that you see easily, so they didn't put much detail down there. The next room is the Death Star laser cannon, and this is on a rotating base, and it can be tilted up and down to aim it as well. It uses a spring-loaded blaster. You can see that little rubber dart there that you can just flick it back and it'll launch. It has 2 seats for you to put any Death Star operators on there that you want. And behind all this, there is a small little gun rack to hold the blasters that you can give the troopers. Now you can see built into the wall here is a little lever that has a spool that you can spin. And this actually is a raising elevator that takes you from this little cargo storage area up to the hangar bay. The mechanism works very well and it lines up perfectly with the bay. And I really love how they connected these 2 rooms together like that. Also inside is a small little crane with a little hand. Like nearly every other room, the elevator arc connects here, and you can see there are 2 little side entrances over there, one with a ladder, one with a little mock ladder, and this leads to Luke's famous swing across the gap. And the wire here, you can put them on any way you want. You can put a stormtrooper up top if you want to make it look like he's shooting. You can try and have him hold Leia. The figures don't really latch onto each other, but you can make them stand over there in the corner at the entrance like they're about to swing. This level is really cool because it is the tallest, taking up the bottom 2 levels, and it is fairly accurate. Moving up, we have the hangar bay here with little markings on the floor to direct the TIE fighters inside, a little control panel on the wall back there, and you can see that Darth Vader's TIE fighter here is actually on a little swivel mechanism that you can use to move it around and take it off. And inside there is enough room to put a figure in this case Darth Vader. It does take up quite a bit of space in this room, but it is nice to have in there as a reference from the original Death Star. You can see that the elevator connects in the back and you can actually see the floor of it this time. And we have Han opening the door here. It does actually open and close, and it is connected to this little room where you have the panel right there. A majority of this next room is actually the Death Star laser. You can see here though the control panel to open the hangar bay doors and close them. The rest of the room is really dedicated to the laser, which can move up and down, left and right. It's controlled directly by the little station right above it in the room up top. We'll go over that in the future, but you can see the little build here. It is very difficult to put together, especially to get all the lasers to kind of look like they are pointing at the same center beam. The use of the gear mechanics here though is really fun. I like what they did here. And as you can see, you can put a little Death Star officer there to make it look like he's operating the turret. The door directly from this room ties into the security room with the jail cells, and there's a lot of interesting detail in here. We've got a swiveling security camera up top, we've got all the control panels there that Han Solo shot in the movie, and the hallway has some really cool builds. It's actually built to make it look like it descends, like it goes on for a distance when it's actually not that deep. The little gear to the right can be flipped open to open Princess Leia's jail cell, and the one on the left there opens up to drop down right into the trash compactor, which is a really awesome feature. I like how they line that up. The top of the prison cell here is fairly simple. It's just a rectangle, but you can open up the side of Princess Leia's jail cell and you can see her inside just by pulling it off the hinge. This is definitely one of my favorite rooms in this set because there are a lot of scenes you can recreate and a lot of fun playability options you have here if you want to mess around and drop people into the trash chute or something like that. The last room on this floor is the Emperor's throne room from the second Death Star. You can see here there's a little panel there that Luke jumps on. You can actually pull your finger out and knock that down. You can see the Emperor's throne over here. It swivels so that he can look out the back, which actually just looks into the hangar. You can see that this little knob here on the roof actually just turns the turrets that are right above this room. You can actually move these turrets using a knob on the side to make it aim up and down. There wasn't much room here, but I'm glad they put a feature here that you can somewhat play with. And in the back there you can see that there's room for the elevator to come up. There's actually quite a lot of interactivity in this room. I don't understand the barrels there. You can see the little blue and gray barrels there. There's some green ones over on the side. I don't understand the purpose of those. They just kind of feel like filler. Other than that though, I think this room is perfect because it's one of the most important scenes in the trilogy. As we move into the top of the Death Star, you can see we've got a little repair room here, or a storage room. It's got a little desk with a little magnifying glass to make it look like you can repair things. It's got some tools. The 2 extra helmets that were included for Han and Luke, a little cart here that holds a blaster and a little dial. I put the assassin droid in the corner like he's digging in the little trash. You can also put someone on top of that little moving table up front in the center to make it look like you're repairing it. And if you turn this knob here, you can actually raise and lower the elevator. It's all controlled from this knob right here. So if you want to move it around, you can do that. The elevator actually fits pretty tightly in there, and it has little rollers on the side to keep it from getting caught and to make sure it slides down the center. They didn't have to include an elevator in this set at all. It really went out of their way for them to have to hollow out the center and find some sort of mechanism to allow an elevator to go through. And I really think it's fantastic that they decided to keep one there, because you can use it in a lot of ways to make different scenes. And I just think it was a feature that shows a lot of skill in building, and I'm really glad that they took their time to do it. In this next room, you can see we have the control room for the Death Star laser. This is supposed to be where Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader brought Leia, and you can see here that you can flip the Alderaan into a targeting system, like a countdown until the laser destroys it. And I think this is really cool, especially that printed piece, because it's very unique. I do think, though, that the room could have used a little more detail. And in the next room, we have the conference room with all the swiveling chairs, where Darth Vader and the rest of the officers met in the beginning of the first movie. You can lift up the table and release some blasters here. There's some decoration built into the wall on either side. I really don't understand the crimson tubes they have on the side. I think it's just more of the filler that we've seen elsewhere in this set. And then here again, we have the blaster turrets where you can turn them from side to side and raise their guns if you want. And that is the 2008 LEGO Death Star. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and comment to let me know what you think about the video, and be sure to subscribe to see our future content.